So I guess we've never done this before. I've never done this before. I don't know about you.
First time for everything.
There is indeed a first time for everything. So I guess at least my initial thoughts for this sort of episode 1, let's call it, is just quick introductions, really. Well, I mean, the idea being that we'll kind of keep the episodes short and sweet, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe max. That should make it a little bit easier for us to keep up some sort of schedule.
Definitely.
Maybe we'll just start with introductions, names, who we work for, that kind of stuff. And then we'll have a little bit of a chat about how we maybe got into where we are now. Yeah. So I guess I'll kick things off with an introduction to say welcome to episode 1 of our podcast, which currently doesn't have a name. I mean, I've got a suggested name. I don't know what you think to it, Andy. But we've got a suggested name, which we'll maybe get onto in a minute. But my name's Nathan Hutchinson. I'm one of the solutions architects at Threatscape. And I've been with them now for just coming up to 2 years. So I'll let you introduce yourself, Andy.
Excellent. So I'm Andy Kemp. I'm a modern work architect and practice lead at Delaware, UK and Ireland. I've been there for just coming up to 5 months. So a relatively newbie. I'm here creating a whole new team for them.
Nice. Exciting stuff, that.
Yeah. Challenging.
And yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Very similar role to, I guess, what Rue's doing at Threatscape. And I don't envy him. And we met, at Scottish Summit.
Scottish Summit, yeah, last October.
Yes, we did. I guess I'll kick things off by asking you the question. How did you get into Microsoft technologies and ultimately sort of end up where you are now?
Wow. We've only got 20 minutes, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Many, many years ago. I wanted to do software development. So I wanted to become a software engineer, one of those people. And I planned to get into uni to do software engineering, but I kind of enjoyed college too much and did too much partying. So I didn't get the points I needed to get into university. So that kind of fell by the wayside. But I started at they're quite a well-known company now, FDM Group. They're kind of a global presence in their training academy on NT4. So, I mean, that was back in the 90s. So this is going back a long way. Within 4 weeks of doing that, I was meant to be doing it for 6 months. I got sent out on contract to a bank in Luxembourg. So I spent some time out there working as a sysadmin, basically on contract. And throughout the years, I was just growing my knowledge from that. And, fun fact is to date, I never completed my MCSE.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, I've been working in IT for must be 28 years now or something like that.
Oh, nice. That's a good thing.
So a long, long time. Seeing it go through so many iterations. But that's where I got the excitement from working with the Microsoft products. So going from things like Exchange 5.5 to Exchange 2000 and seeing that grow to what it is now in Exchange Online has been amazing to see that. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Been through several companies over the years. Some I would hate to go back to, but I wouldn't change that because it kind of gives you the experience you need. So it's, you know what it's like when things go right, that's great, but you're not really learning. It's not until things go wrong and you're up the creek without a paddle when you have to really kind of learn. But
totally agree.
So let me ask you this. I'll ask you the same question, or do you want to wait till later on?
No. Well, I was just gonna say. So, would you say that your sort of venture into Microsoft 365 was kind of driven by that Exchange migration piece initially, and then did you do anything with any of the other Office applications, services, SharePoint, stuff like that?
The company I moved to that I absolutely hated. I was there as their systems engineer, but 365 was just coming out at that time, so it was BPOS back in the day.
Yes.
So the 2007 versions of Exchange, OCS, before it became Link, before it became Skype, and then before it became Teams. And
definitely before my time.
through all the iterations of SharePoint as well. And with the contracts I've been on with FTM, they sent me up to London on contract as well as a Lotus Notes expert, but I hadn't touched Lotus Notes. And so my very first project was how to do a 365 migration from Lotus Notes to Exchange Online. And let me tell you, that's how I learned how not to do a migration.
Nice.
We were told it would take six weeks. 6 months later, we still hadn't migrated the first mailbox. So I learned a lot in that and how Exchange Online works, how everything worked. But we didn't have all the joys we have today, like conditional access, password hash sync. If you wanted to use your AD credentials, we had to use ADFS.
Yeah.
Of course, that required 4 servers at least and a couple of load balancers. Or you use cloud passwords. So although we had DIRSync, as it was back in the day, that would synchronize your identities, it was, when you migrated the users, you would set their password in a plain text file and have that uploaded and then email it to them. Talking about security, it's kind of it'd be your worst nightmare, wouldn't it?
Yes.
My worst nightmare. But that's how I got into it, and then it was developing on that. So it was Link back then. I think it moved to, so the whole communicating over Link, and it was just. I look back at what it was back then, and it's scary. Like everything, anyone can access anytime, any device. The only restrictions you could do was IP. So let's limit what IP address can access. It was revolutionary, but really shocking now when you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the whole thing's just come such a long way. Even in you've obviously been doing it a lot longer than I have. A lot of that stuff you were referring to there was prior to even my time when I first started getting
just
involved with
365.
Yeah, I get that in there. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Things have changed a lot since then, and I guess some of it's got easier. There's a lot more documentation. Microsoft done a really good job at documenting all that kind of stuff and improving those services and features, which is nice to see. So yeah, okay, well that's a good introduction.
What about yourself then? So how did you get into IT? How did you get into security?
Yeah, so I'm a funny one insofar as I left school and I didn't go into IT at all because I hated IT. Closest I got to IT was playing PlayStation. So I left school and I went into an apprenticeship as a mechanic. I was a mechanic, did a 3-year apprenticeship working for a plant and tool hire company. So, excavators, dump trucks, all that kind of stuff I used to deal with. And I was a mechanic for just shy of 6 years, and then sort of slowly started moving into sort of management within that area. And as I sort of was making that switch, I started getting into the whole YouTube scenario. There was a lot of stuff happening in YouTube around the tech environment, tech scenario. A lot of YouTubers that were getting sort of bigger in that environment, and it was specifically around things like building computers. Building computers is a big thing.
Yep.
And that was kind of what got me into it initially. Started building my own computer or computers, started building computers for other people, kind of got into gaming on PC and all that kind of jazz. And I was, I guess, fortunate in that there was a little computer shop near me where I lived at the time. And I was so desperate to get into IT by this point that I decided to drop my full-time job, which I'd done pretty well in I'd moved on to another plant and tool hire company. I was about 22, 23, but I decided to drop that career to move into the IT world, where I was just working for a PC computer repair shop, literally just fixing computers for people. People would literally come in and it was like, oh, like the typical, oh, I've got a virus, can you help me remove it? All that kind of jazz. And the bloke who owned that shop very quickly realized that I had other skills that would be useful to him in terms of building the business. Just from my previous time from what I was doing in the plant and tool hire industry, because I was also doing sort of like sales at that spot. So I did a lot of contract negotiation and things like that.
Oh, nice.
Anyway, that kind of turned into coming in as a business partner with them. And we turned what was a sort of little computer repair shop into, I guess, a like local small town MSP. We started doing support for businesses, like end user remote support. I was providing consulting services to businesses around, it kind of started off mainly around infrastructure, server infrastructure, networking. I kind of started delving into doing lots of different bits and pieces around that, which kind of naturally turned into, okay, we're using Gmail for our email. And I was going, okay, well, 365 is just when I think it was just as it had done the rebrand, I was saying, so 365 is kind of the way to go. So then got involved in doing email migrations from Gmail to 365, did a couple of on-prem Exchange migrations to 365, that kind of stuff, helping people figure out how SharePoint worked and all that kind of stuff. And we ended up building a pretty good business together. And we basically built it up to the point where my business partner, who was actually a lot older than me, he was like, look, I'm not interested in doing this anymore. Like, it's getting too busy for me. I just like fixing computers. I want people to come in and go, I want you to clean up my hard drive and all that kind of stuff. So I had a friend who worked for an MSP, another MSP, and I basically just said, look, let's just call it quits then. And I'll just take the businesses with me elsewhere. So that's what I did. I took it to another MSP. And that was kind of actually, when you think about it, although I'd been running a smaller MSP, this was really my first time working in the industry where I wasn't working for myself. So it was kind of like a big shift for me. And I felt like a small fish in a big pond once I made that jump into working for another company, working for another MSP. But I excelled pretty quickly within the first couple of years working for that MSP. I came in as essentially like a technical account manager, which is kind of like project management as well as like client-facing account management stuff. But that kind of quickly turned into doing a lot of M365 administration. I covered a lot of different areas. I did a lot of SharePoint information architecture sort of jobs. Naturally turned into Intune, which is throughout that period. I was there for about 8 years. Probably like roughly halfway into that, Intune became a big thing. Yep. So I decided to spend a lot of time involving myself with that and learning how to use Intune. It kind of just went from there really, which again naturally turned into, okay, if we're using Intune, maybe we should be looking at the Defender stack for security, and then conditional access became a big thing, and it kind of just went from there really. And then I think it was just over 2 years ago, or just coming up to 2 years ago, I then took the opportunity to come away from that MSP environment to move to Threatscape, where it's more of a sort of consultative role, but very much doing the same stuff I was doing there really, which was implementation of things like Intune, Defender, Purview, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the my sort of journey, I guess, from being a mechanic into where I am now.
that's a pretty cool journey, though. I was just always in IT, but actually doing something else, I think is quite neat, because it just gives you, gives you exposure to other areas. And also it lets you see that side of the fence, how customers are with MSPs and with consultancy.
Yep, absolutely. And I do think that my time, like as a mechanic, gave me some really good skills. The ability to sort of look at a potential complex problem and break it down into smaller chunks was something that I managed to sort of pull out from that, which I think was really useful for me. I'm not sure I could imagine going back to it though. I do like being in the IT space.
Yeah, no, it's a love-hate for me in the IT space. It's really good, but it's frustrating as well. Because you're probably like me. You can see the obvious, but sometimes, customers don't always see it. That they just think they've got something in place that works. But it works, but it's not necessarily secure.
Yeah.
This leads on to that whole zero trust, zero network access, et cetera, et cetera. It's coining that phrase of your perimeter is no longer the security, it's your users are the perimeter kind of thing. Firewalls just don't cut it anymore. You can't wrap a firewall around your user base. And I guess that this is something we want to delve into a bit more as we go through this podcast journey and talk about that and look at how our experiences can help other people.
Absolutely. And that is a nice segue onto, because I'm just conscious of time, is a nice segue onto, I guess, discussion of our plans for the podcast.
Yeah.
Like you say there. So it's going to be a case of talking about our experiences, talking about maybe particular subjects or particular topics. I'd like to think maybe we'll be covering things like best practices as well.
Yep.
So what people could be doing within their Microsoft 365 environments, following Microsoft best practices and obviously our experience as well. You obviously have got your YouTube channel.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that. I know it's relatively new.
So very new. Just one video on there. As you and I were discussing, I kind of jumped in there just before you did with privileged access workstations.
Yeah.
But I know we talked about it briefly at Scottish Summit as well. One of my passions is the whole thing of sorting out your privileged access, because sorting out user access is key. But if you don't have your privileged users sorted, then that's where you can have all sorts of issues. So I'm actually just working on a second video, not to do with privileged access workstations, it's more to do with VPNs and site-to-site, and doing a cost-effective VPN for Azure.
Nice.
So more for people who've got free credits from Azure. So because if you use a VPN gateway, it's going to eat through your credits, whereas 125 doesn't get you far. So this basically means you can get a VPN for about £3.50 a month in Azure.
Oh, that's interesting. I'll be keen to see that video.
Yeah, it's. Would you use in production? Definitely not, because it's purely for labbing. If you use it in production on your head, be it kind of thing, it's your own risk. Yeah. But it's predominantly privileged access is something I've really had a, dare I say, passion for recently, because I've just seen it done wrong. There's no one right way to do it, but I've seen it done wrong many ways. If people get keys to your kingdom, you're screwed.
Totally agree.
But you've just rebooted your YouTube channel as well.
Absolutely. So I mean, like during that sort of time period where I was going from working in as a mechanic over to the IT world, I also sort of found a love for content creation.
Yep.
So I was doing tech reviews and all that kind of stuff on YouTube, which kind of went on for like 2 years, and it was doing pretty good, and I really enjoyed it. But when I moved into that MSP environment, I just didn't have the time to sort of keep up with it really. And I also my priorities and the kind of stuff that I enjoyed doing changed. It wasn't tech reviews. So I didn't enjoy building PCs anymore. I enjoyed building SharePoint architectures and all the rest of it. So that whole thing changed. But so I've rebooted that. The idea is that, I'll continue to post videos, but it'll be new content around Microsoft 365 and the kind of stuff that we're going to be talking about on the podcast, I guess, and the kind of stuff that you're going to be doing.
Absolutely.
For your YouTube channel.
I like your new intro.
Thank you.
I saw your video yesterday. That's very cool. And again, congratulations on your MVP. That's great news.
Thank you very much.
So are you off to MVP Summit, or is it?
No, a little bit late for that.
Bad timing. Yeah,
but I'll maybe be there. I think that you can join remotely, so I'm going to be looking at trying to do that instead. Maybe next year.
Hopefully. That is good. So, hopefully our YouTube channels provide some use to other people. I mean that's why we do it. We just want to share our knowledge, and it's all about letting people learn from our own experiences. And it just shows, I've been working in IT for 28, almost 30 years. You've been working it for what, 20 maybe?
No, not quite that much. Probably coming up to about 12 years.
12 years. No matter how long or how short you've been working in it, everyone has those experiences.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's age has nothing to do with it, because I'm learning so much from people who are a lot younger than me, and it's just their adoption of things. And well said. It's experience at the end of the day, whether you're 45 like me or a 20-year-old. I've got more experience in the industry, but certain products, they've probably got a better concept of it, I think, as well.
Yeah.
And we can learn from each other. And that's what I want to do here is, share my experiences, but also, watching your videos, learn from you, watching other people's, learn from them.
Yeah, I totally agree. Do you know what? You kind of just hit the nail on the head there. So one of the things I really enjoy about speaking in person, and to be fair, I say enjoy, I hate it because I'm terrified of getting up and standing up in front of people and talking. But the bit that I enjoy the most is when people give me content. So I'll be stood up there talking, but doing my bit. But it's when someone holds a hand up and they go, "So actually, there's this, and this, there's X, Y, and Z." That's what I really enjoy. Is that the teaching opportunities are also learning opportunities.
Absolutely, every day's a school day.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Well said. So look, I mean, I guess we're coming up on time. It'll be worth just kind of wrapping things up with, I guess, what we'll maybe be looking at and talking about in the next episode, which I think you alluded to was privileged access workstations.
Yep.
For anyone that's maybe not seen your video, it's worth going and checking out your YouTube channel, because you've already released that video there on how to spin up a privileged access workstation in AVD. Yes, that's right.
Yes, it's. I mean, the video at the moment is very much geared around just spinning up the AVD environment. So there's not much in the way of privileged access yet. I think you and I were talking about the next video if you wanted to do something for the conditional access side of things and locking it down. If you want to do that's great. And then it goes through deploying the AVD session hosts, and also just doing the simple things like the device extension attributes. So it's tagged as a privileged access workstation. If you're looking at deploying AVD, it helps you with deploying AVD, full stop. And it's quite exciting using ARM templates and Bicep, because that's a whole new journey for me as well, because I've not done anything with infrastructure as code before. Yeah, no, neither have I. And yes, absolutely, we'll work on something together there to come up with like a second video for that, I guess. But yeah, I mean, that's what we'll talk about in the next episode. We'll talk about privileged access workstations, maybe some best practices, things to think about, and all that kind of good stuff. Absolutely. Anything else you want to wrap up on, I guess? I don't think of anything. No? Okay. Well, look, I mean, I guess for anyone that's watching or listening, come back for episode 2 where we'll be talking about privileged access workstations. We'll go from there. Cool. Cheers, mate. Cheers.